Captain Lee Jiho had been staring at the same patch of empty space for 3 hours. His ship, the Dihan Star, was supposed to be mapping uncharted systems along the edge of known space. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The coffee had gone cold in his cup 2 hours ago, but he kept sipping it anyway. Kim Mina, his communications officer, was playing a card game on her tablet. The engine hummed steadily. Everything was normal until the universe decided to change that. Though first sign wasn't sound, it was silence. The constant background chatter from nearby systems suddenly cut out. Then came the signal, breaking through every frequency at once like a scream in the dark. Mina dropped her tablet. The cards scattered across her screen as alien symbols filled every monitor on the bridge. But the translation software kicked in after a few seconds, and what they heard made everyone stop what they were doing. "This is Veltara. Our star is dying. Please help us." The message repeated in dozens of languages. Some they recognized, others completely foreign. The desperation in the artificial voice was unmistakable, even through the translator. "How many people are on Veltara?" Jiho asked quietly. Mina's fingers flew across her console. "According to our records, 12 billion. The bridge went silent. 12 billion people. That was more than the entire population of Earth. Lieutenant Park Byung, their tactical officer, spoke up. "Sir, the signal is being broadcast in every direction. They're not just talking to us." "Show me," Jiho ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red lines spread out from Veltara like a spider web, reaching toward every major civilization they knew. The signal was going to the Zenthari Empire, the Stellar Federation, the Corvin Alliance, everyone. "Any responses?" Jiho asked. "Checking now, sir." Mina worked at her station. "The Zenthari have received it. The Corvin too. But no one's responding yet." Jiho walked to the viewing port and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a civilization was watching their sun die. He thought about Earth. If it were his world dying, what would he want others to do? "Navigation, set course for Veltara. Best speed." His navigation officer, Chu Deho, hesitated. "Sir, that'll take us out of our assigned patrol route." "I know. And we'll need to refuel at Outpost 7. That's 3 days in the wrong direction." No. Sir, we haven't received orders from—" "I know." Jiho turned around. His crew was watching him. They'd been together for 2 years now. They trusted him. "Look, I don't care what the regulations say. There are 12 billion people who are going to die, and maybe we can help." Engineer An Sohyun nodded. "What do we know about Veltara?" "Not much," Mina admitted, pulling up files. "Small planet, been around for maybe 30,000 years. They're not part of any major alliance. Pretty much keep to themselves." "Why? Is their star dying?" asked Park. "Unknown. The signal doesn't say. Could be natural stellar evolution, could be something else." Jiho made up his mind. "We're going. Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're investigating a distress call." As the Dahan Star turned toward Veltara, the alien signal continued to repeat. Hour after hour, the same desperate plea echoed across the galaxy. But as time passed, something became clear. No one was responding. The Zenthari Empire sent an automated reply acknowledging receipt. The Stellar Federation forwarded it to their Science Council. The Corvin Alliance marked it as under review. But no ships moved. No fleets changed course. No one was coming to help. "This doesn't make sense," Mina said during the second day. 12 billion people, and nobody cares? "Maybe they all think someone else will handle it," suggested Deho. "Or maybe," Park said grimly, "they've decided it's not their problem." Jiho thought about that. It was probably true. Veltara was small, out of the way. They had nothing valuable to trade. No strategic importance. In the cold calculations of galactic politics, 12 billion lives weren't worth the cost of a rescue mission. On the third day, they reached Outpost 7. As they refueled, news came from Earth. The Galactic Council was meeting. The Veltara situation was on the agenda. They're debating it, the station commander told Jiho over coffee. Big discussion about resources, jurisdiction, who's responsible. What about Earth's position? We abstained. As usual. The commander shrugged. Politics, you know. Jiho stared into his coffee. 3 days of debate while 12 billion people watched their sun dim. When he was a kid, his grandmother had told him stories about the old days on Earth, how people would travel across oceans to help strangers, how humans had always been the ones to run toward danger instead of away from it. Maybe that had changed. Maybe they'd grown too big, too political, too careful. But he hadn't. Refueling complete, sir, So-hyun reported. Ready to depart. Then, let's go, Jiho said. Veltara's waiting. As the Daehan star jumped to hyperspace, the Galactic Council was still talking, still debating, still deciding whether 12 billion lives were worth saving, but one human ship was already on its way. Admiral Park Sun-woo was having his morning tea when the message arrived. Earth Fleet Command had a routine to everything, even emergencies, followed protocols. But Captain Lee Jiho's report made Sun-woo nearly spill hot tea on his uniform. He's doing what? Sun-woo asked his aide. Moving toward Veltara to investigate their distress call, sir. Without authorization. Sun-woo set down his teacup carefully. He'd known Jiho for 15 years, ever since the young pilot had graduated. From the academy. Always been a troublemaker. Always caring too much about the people others forgot about. Get him on the line. Now. The holographic display flickered to life. Jiho's face appeared, looking tired but determined. Behind him, the bridge of the Daehan star hummed with activity. Captain Lee, what exactly do you think you're doing? Responding to a distress call, sir. Without authorization, without backup, without thinking. Jiho straightened. 12 billion people asked for help. Someone should answer. And what can one ship do? Your crew of 35 against a dying star? Sun-woo leaned forward. The council made their decision. All major powers agree. The rescue is too expensive, too risky. The council decided to let them die. The council decided to be realistic. Silence stretched between them. In the background, reports kept coming. The Zenthari fleet was mobilizing, but toward a different system. The Stellar Federation was dealing with pirates in Sector 12. Everyone had more important things to do than save Veltara. Sir, Jiho said quietly, when did we stop being human? The question hit harder than Sun-woo expected. What? When did we become just another political entity? When did efficiency become more important than lives? Captain, this isn't about politics, it's about reality. We don't have the resources to... We have the resources to maintain 50 battle fleets across the galaxy. We spent 2 trillion credits last year on a new space station, but we can't save one planet because it's inconvenient? Sun-woo rubbed his temples. Jiho, I understand how you feel, but orders are orders. Return to your patrol route immediately. No, sir. The word hung in, the air like a weapon. In 30 years of service, Sun-woo had never had a captain directly refuse an order. Excuse me? I said no, sir. We're continuing to Veltara. Captain, I'm ordering you to... The transmission cut off. Sun-woo stared at the empty screen. His aide looked pale. Sir, should we send ships to intercept? How long to reach Veltara? From their position, about 18 days at maximum speed. And how long for our nearest ships to intercept? 22 days, sir. Sun-woo almost smiled despite himself. Jiho had planned this well. By the time they could stop him, he'd already be there. Clever kid. Stupid, but clever. On the Daehan star, the crew was gathered in the mess hall. Everyone was there, all 35 members. Jiho had explained the situation, the orders from Earth, the consequences of disobeying. Lieutenant Park Byung spoke first. So we're officially rebels now? Not rebels, said Engineer An So-hyun. Humans. Pilot Chu Daeho laughed nervously. My dad's going to love this. His son, the space criminal. Anyone want to back out? Jiho asked. I'll understand. This isn't your fight. Kim Mina stood up. Actually, it is. We all saw the signal. We all heard them asking for help. That makes it our fight. One by one, the others nodded. They weren't doing this for glory or politics. They were doing it because it was right. Meanwhile, on Earth, something unexpected was happening. As word spread about Jiho's disobedience, support began growing. Citizens started messaging Fleet Command. Scientists offered their expertise. Other captains quietly asked if they should follow. Dr. Kang Do-yun, Mars Colony's best stellar engineer, sent a simple message. Count me in. The Mars transport. Jiri broke away from its normal route. Then the mining platform, Baekdu. Slowly, like drops joining a stream, other human vessels began moving toward Veltara. Admiral Sun Woo watched the reports coming in. 17 ships had left their assigned positions. More were following. His communication boards were overloaded with volunteers. They can't all disobey orders, his aide said weakly. Can't they? Sun Woo pulled up the regulations manual. Section 4.7.2. Fleet personnel are authorized to render aid to civilizations in immediate danger of extinction. He smiled grimly. Seems like Captain Lee found a loophole. The political fallout would be massive. The UN would demand explanations. The Galactic Council would be furious. But for the first time in years, humanity was acting like humans again. On Veltara, Governor Thane Kellery watched the approaching ships on his scanner. 17 human vessels. Not an invasion fleet, not merchants. Rescuers. His forearms trembled as he activated the planetary communications. This is Veltara. Human ships. We did not expect anyone to come. Jiho's voice came back clear and strong. We heard your call. We're coming to help. But why? We are nothing to you. We have no resources, no power, no reason to. You asked for help. Jiho interrupted. That's enough. As the human fleet grew closer, other species watched with curiosity. The efficient Zenthari analyzed human behavior patterns. The calculating Corvin tried to understand the profit motive. The logical Stellar Federation ran simulations on possible outcomes. None of them understood. Humans weren't acting efficiently or logically or profitably. They were acting human. And for the first time in galactic history, that made all the difference. The first thing they saw wasn't planets or stars. It was chaos. Captain Lee Jiho gripped his chair as the Dahan star dropped out of hyperspace. The entire Veltara system looked like a traffic accident in space. Hundreds of ships clogged the shipping lanes, massive container vessels, tiny personal transports, and everything in between. They were all heading in the same direction, away from the dying star. Sir, we're getting multiple collision warnings, Kim Mina reported, her fingers flying over the communications console. The entire system is gridlocked. Lieutenant Park Byung pulled up the tactical display. It's like everyone's trying to use the same door at once. The refugee fleet extends all the way back to the fourth planet. Jiho had seen evacuations before, but nothing like this. Are they coordinating at all? Not really, Mina said sadly. Each ship is just trying to get out as fast as possible. Some of the smaller vessels are getting pushed aside by the bigger ones. As they moved deeper into the system, the scale of the disaster became clear. Veltara's star, once a brilliant yellow dwarf, now pulsed with an unnatural orange glow. Dark spots covered its surface like infections. Even without instruments, you could see it was wrong. My God, whispered engineer An So-hyun, staring at the main screen. What happened to it? Chu Daeho ran a scan. It's collapsing from the inside. Out. Core temperature is dropping fast. At this rate, how long? Jiho asked quietly. 4 months, maybe less. The human fleet, now 18 ships, formed up around the Dahan star. They'd been joined by the mining platform Baekdu just hours ago. Captain Yoon Kyung-soo's gravelly voice came over the comm. Well, Lee, you've really stepped in at this time. Coming from you, Kyung-soo, that's rich. Weren't you the one who started a bar fight with 3 Zenthari officers last year? 2 officers. And I won. Yoon paused. What's the plan? Before Jiho could answer, a new voice cut through the chatter. It was unlike anything they'd heard before. Deeper than human speech with an odd harmonic quality that made it sound like music and thunder at the same time. Human vessels, this is Governor Thane Kellery of Veltara. Please identify yourselves. On the main screen, an alien face appeared. Kellery had 4 arms, deep purple skin, and large eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world. When he smiled, it was with genuine surprise and hope. Governor, I'm Captain Lee Jiho of the Earth vessel Dahan Star. We received your distress call. You came. Kellery's voice broke slightly. I cannot believe. We sent our message to 147 civilizations. You are the first to respond. The bridge fell silent. 147 requests for help and only humans had answered. Sir, Dr. Kang Doyen's voice came through from the Jiri. We need to see the star up close. If we're going to help, I need to know what we're dealing with. As they approached Veltara itself, the devastation became even clearer. The planet's surface was scarred with massive mining operations that looked more like wounds than construction sites. Mountains had been carved away completely. Entire continents showed signs of desperate excavation. They've been trying to dig deep enough to find cooling agents, So-Yun observed, studying the sensor readings. Anything that might help their star. It's not working, Mina added, monitoring the planet's broadcasts. No matter how deep they go, they can't find enough rare elements to make a difference. Kim Mina intercepted a planetary broadcast. On screen, a female Veltaran news anchor spoke with forced calm. Behind her, families loaded possessions onto transport vehicles. Children clutched toys while their parents tried to decide what was worth saving. We're looking at their evacuation sites, Engineer So-Hyun reported from the Baekdu. They're trying to move 12 billion people with maybe 2 billion transport spaces. The math doesn't work. Jiho closed his eyes. Even if they saved some, billions would die. It wasn't enough to just slow the star's death. They needed to fix it completely. Dr. Kang, can it be done? The scientist was quiet for a long moment. Theoretically, yes, we'd need to inject the star with a massive amount of heavy elements to restart proper fusion. But the injection would have to be direct, into the star's core. That's a suicide mission, Park said quietly. I know. Kang's voice was steady. The ship carrying the materials would never make it out. The stellar radiation and gravity would tear it apart long before we could escape. The comm channel went silent. 18 human crews digesting the reality of their situation. To save Veltara, some of them would have to die. It was Han Minji, the youngest pilot in the fleet, who spoke first. I'll do it. Minji, you don't have to, Jiho began. Yes, I do. We all do. Isn't that why we came here? One by one, voices joined hers. Not just pilots, but engineers, scientists, communications officers. They all knew what had to be done. Governor Kellery, watching from Veltara, couldn't understand. Why? He asked. Why would you sacrifice yourselves for us? We have nothing to offer you. No treaties, no trade agreements, no strategic value. Captain Jiho smiled sadly. Governor, you asked for help. That's all the reason we need. As the human fleet prepared for what might be their final mission, something beautiful happened. Children on Veltara began drawing pictures of the human ships. Mothers sang lullabies about the strangers who came from far away. Scientists shared their data, freely, hoping it might help. For the first time in months, the Veltarans weren't just waiting to die. They had hope. And far across the galaxy, other civilizations watched in confusion as humans prepared to sacrifice themselves for strangers. They couldn't understand the calculation that made human lives worth less than alien lives. But then again, maybe that was the point. Maybe the calculation was wrong. The preparations took 3 days. 3 days of loading the heavy elements onto the mining ship Jiri. 3 days of checking and double-checking the injection system. 3 days for 18 crews to say goodbye to friends they'd served with for years. Han Minji had volunteered first, but she wasn't alone. The entire crew of the Jiri, 32 people, had stepped forward. engineers Bae Seok-woo and Jin Hyerim, pilot Kim Chilman, even the ship's cook, an older man named Seo Taiho who made the best ramen in the fleet. "You don't understand," Taiho had said when Captain Jiho tried to talk him out of it. "My grandson is on Earth. When he grows up and asks what his grandfather did in the war against the dying star, I want to have a good answer." They were making final preparations when the alarms started screaming. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace, Lieutenant Park Byung announced, his voice tight. 5 ships, Zenthari configuration. The main screen showed them clearly. Zenthari warships were massive, dark things that looked more like floating cities than spacecraft. Each one could easily destroy the entire human fleet. "Incoming transmission," Kim Mina reported. The Zenthari commander appeared on screen. His species was humanoid but taller, with metallic skin and eyes like molten gold. When he spoke, it was in the emotionless tone they were known for. "Human vessels, you are operating in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 1847C. Withdraw immediately." Captain Jiho stood straighter. "We're conducting a humanitarian rescue, not a military operation." "Irrelevant. This system has been designated a non-intervention zone. Your presence violates 3 separate treaties. While you were reading treaties, 12 billion people were dying." The Zenthari commander's expression didn't change. "Veltaran law requires all refugees to surrender to Zenthari processing camps for identity verification and resource allocation. You are interfering with this legal process." "Processing camps?" Dr. Kang's voice crackled over the comm. "You mean you've been planning to take them as refugees this whole time, while letting their planet die?" "Veltaran citizens possess certain genetic markers valuable for our research programs. Naturally, we must ensure they are properly cataloged before resettlement." The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone understood. The Zenthari hadn't come to save anyone. They'd come to collect useful specimens after the planet died. "No," Jiho said simply. "You refuse to comply? We refuse to let you turn these people into lab rats." The Zenthari warships moved into attack formation. On Veltara, Governor Kellery watched the confrontation unfold. His people had been afraid the humans were another conquering force. Now, he understood they were the only thing standing between Veltara and a fate worse than death. "Human ships," he broadcast, "you must leave. Save yourselves. We've lived for 30,000 years. That's enough." "Nobody's lived enough," Jiho replied. "Jiri, begin your approach to the star. All combat ships, form defensive screen." What followed wasn't really a battle. It was more like a storm meeting a mountain. The Zenthari had 5 warships with advanced weapons and shielding. The humans had converted mining vessels, exploration craft, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. The first exchange of fire lit up the system. Zenthari energy beams met human railgun rounds and missile barrages. The human ships scattered like leaves, using their smaller size to advantage. Captain Yoon Kyung-soo on the Baekdu laughed over the comm as he launched mining drones at the nearest Zenthari ship. "You like picking on refugees? Try picking on someone your own size." The drones weren't weapons, but they had explosive mining charges. When they swarmed the Zenthari vessel, the result was spectacular. Meanwhile, the Jiri pushed toward the star, its hull already glowing from radiation. Through the chaos of battle, Han Minji's voice stayed calm and steady. "Jiri to all ships. We're at 60% of optimal injection point. Drive systems holding steady." A Zenthari fighter squadron broke through the human defensive line, heading straight for the Jiri, but they hadn't counted on the Veltarans. From the surface, defense platforms that had been silent for decades suddenly came alive. Ancient but effective, they bought the Jiri precious time. On Veltara's surface, something remarkable was happening. Civilians were abandoning their evacuation to form human shields around the refugee ships. Unarmed Veltarans stood between Zenthari, attack craft, and the humans who had come to save them. "This is impossible," the Zenthari commander snarled. "Indigenous cooperation with foreign military forces is a violation of—" His transmission was cut off as a jury-rigged human freighter rammed his flagship. "Sorry about that." came the voice of Captain Park Suman from the wreckage. Seems our navigation system malfunctioned. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fell one by one, but they kept fighting. From Earth, Admiral Sun Woo watched the feeds, in horror and pride. These weren't soldiers, they were explorers, scientists, miners. They had no business facing a Zenthari fleet. But they were winning, not through superior firepower, but through something the Zenthari couldn't understand. Every human ship that fell seemed to inspire two more to fight harder. When the Daehan, Star's weapons overheated, Jiho used the ship as a battering ram. When the defense platforms ran out of ammunition, Veltaran engineers jury-rigged their mining equipment as weapons. And through it all, the Jiri kept flying. Injection point reached, Dr. Kang announced. His voice was faint now, partially due to static and partially due to radiation exposure. Beginning stellar core injection sequence. On the main screen, they watched the mining ship dive into Veltara's dying star. The temperature readings were impossible. The radiation levels would have killed anyone instantly, but the injection continued. Core temperature rising, someone reported. Fusion reaction stabilizing. The star pulsed once, twice, then blazed with new light. Not the dying orange of before, but a healthy, brilliant yellow. As the light reached them, the remaining Zenthari ships suddenly stopped firing. "This is impossible," their commander whispered. "Stars don't just restart." But this one had. And standing in its new light, battered but unbroken, the human fleet finally had their answer to the galaxy. Sometimes the impossible just takes a little longer. 1 year later, Captain Lee Jiho stood in a garden that shouldn't exist. The memorial was built on Veltara's highest mountain, where the air was thin and the new sun shone brightest. 42 human names were carved into black stone, including the 32 brave souls from the Jiri who had flown directly into Veltara's dying star. But around the memorial, something beautiful had grown. Veltarans had planted flowers from every world they knew, not just their own, but seeds brought by refugee ships, rare blooms gifted by other species. The garden was alive with color and impossible combinations that somehow worked together, just like the fleet that had saved them. "Captain Lee?" a small voice asked in accented English. Jiho looked down to see a young Veltaran girl, maybe 6 years, old by human standards. She had the same 4 arms as her species, but right now she was using all of them to hold an enormous drawing. "I made this for you," she said shyly. The picture showed the battle from a year ago, but seen through a child's eyes. Crayon spaceships fired rainbow beams at scary black ships. At the center, a brave yellow ship dove into a smiling sun. "It's beautiful," Jiho said, crouching down to her level. "What's your name?" "Zara. My mom says you saved us. She says humans are crazy but good crazy," Jiho laughed. "Your mom might be right. Why did you help us?" "My teacher says humans had no reason." It was the question everyone asked. Journalists, scientists, politicians. They all wanted to understand the human calculation that made strangers' lives worth dying for. "Sometimes," Jiho said carefully, "the best reasons are the ones that don't make sense to other people." Kim Mina approached, now wearing a commander's insignia. She'd been promoted after the battle, like many survivors. Earth needed heroes, and accidentally, it had found them. "Sir, we're receiving another signal." Jiho stood, still holding Zara's drawing. "Another distress call?" From the Corvin system. 8 worlds, 20 billion people. Their sun is going nova. They walked back to the Daehan star, now permanently stationed in Veltara's orbit. The ship had been rebuilt after the battle, but the crew insisted on keeping the scorch marks from Zenthari weapons. Battle scars, they called them. Reminders. As they reached the bridge, Jiho noticed things had changed. The ship was busier now. Along with the human crew, there were 3 Veltaran engineers, 2 Corvin specialists, and even a reformed Zenthari scientist who'd requested asylum after witnessing the battle. "Show me the details," Jiho ordered, settling into his captain's chair. The holographic display showed the Corvin system. 8 beautiful worlds orbiting a massive star that was days away from exploding. Unlike Veltara's slowly dying sun, this one would end in an instant of total destruction. The Corvan government's already evacuating, reported Lieutenant Park Byung, but they can't move everyone in time. What about other fleets? Anyone else responding? Mina checked her console. The Stellar Federation says it's too dangerous. The Zenthari are debating in committee. The Andromedan Republic sent a message of sympathy. Sympathy, Jiho muttered. Very helpful. Dr. Yoon Sora, their new chief scientist, looked up from her calculations. She joined after Veltara, inspired by what she'd heard about the mission. Sir, we'd need at least 60 ships to evacuate 20 billion people. We only have 23. Then, we'll have to convince others to help, Jiho said simply. What happened next surprised everyone, including Jiho himself. The call went out across human space. They needed volunteers for another impossible mission. Within hours, ships began moving. Not just military vessels, but cargo haulers, passenger liners, even a cruise ship whose passengers voted unanimously to redirect to Corva. But this time, they weren't alone. From Veltara came 10 ships. Hastily, converted cargo vessels crewed by people who remembered what it felt like to be abandoned by the galaxy. Governor Kellery himself captained the lead ship. You saved us, he said simply. Now we save them. From the Outer Rim worlds came mining platforms and exploration vessels. From the colonies came passenger ships and medical vessels. Even from other species came ships, individuals who'd watched the Battle of Veltara and decided they wanted to be on the right side of history. The Zenthari commander from the previous year sent a single ship with a message. My crew and I formally request to join this mission. In the end, they had more volunteers than they could use. The rescue fleet, 78 ships from 12 different species, was the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history. The news networks couldn't understand it. Why do this? They asked. What's the profit? What's the strategic value? But in the mess halls and cargo bays, people had simpler answers. Because it's right, said a human engineer. Because someone has to, added a Veltaran pilot. Because we're not alone anymore, concluded a Zenthari medic. As the massive fleet jumped to hyperspace, Jiho smiled. The girl Zara had been right. Humans were crazy. But it was the kind of crazy that made impossible things happen. The galaxy had learned something from Veltara. Not about technology or tactics, but about what made some species worth following. It wasn't superior strength or brilliant strategies. It was the willingness to fly into a dying star for people you'd never met. Years later, when historians wrote about this period, they called it the Great Awakening. The moment when the galaxy remembered that some things were worth fighting for, even when the math didn't add up. But to the crews who lived it, it was simpler than that. They called it Thursday, because for humans, apparently, saving the galaxy was just another day at the office, and maybe that was the most human thing of all.